Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Now, are you feeling stuck between who you used to be and who you feel you were meant to become? Are you looking at your life and thinking, well, am I really as successful as I thought I wanted to be? What is my purpose now anyway? Well, for me, what is the definition of success in life? Is it something that we're born to? Is it in our genes? Or is it something maybe we can train for? And what part does identity play in all of this? Well, to help me unpack this and so much more, I'm so excited for my guest today. He is one of Great Britain's most accomplished athletes. He's a world champion. He is an Olympic silver medalist. He's an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, a performance coach. And on top of that, he's a TV presenter. And in fact, his documentary won him a BAFTA. He's collaborated with some of the world's most prestigious brands, and his experience is now bridging the world of sport, technology, and well-being through his businesses, BidAid, uWin, and Wellness Worldwide. Is there anything this man cannot do? Welcome, Jamie Baulch.
What can I say? Wow, that was good. It sounds. It
You are a
sounds like
legend.
that.
How are you? You good? Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to come on. Yeah, what an intro! You absolutely nailed that. Like I said, whenever somebody reads out my sort of resume, I always think it's someone else because I think, have I done that? Am I a world champion? Did I get an Olympic medal? Have I raised lots of money for charity? Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you have. I think this is the thing. Sometimes we don't always recognize our own success. We're always tend to, I don't know whether it's a British trait or maybe it is to be very humble and, don't blow your own trumpet kind of thing. But I think, we need to.
Yeah, yeah, it is definitely a British trait, and I think it's good to be sort of humble to a degree, and just do what you're doing. It doesn't matter what you've done in the world if it's as people deem it to be successful or not. We're all human beings, and we're all
Mm.
living our own lives, and it's all about for me, it's just doing what I can do and do it at its best, and if being the best I can be ends up being a world champion, then well, great. I suppose that's the good thing.
Well, I think this is a thing. And it's, I always think about what is success. We always tend to put a monetary term on it, don't we? And is that really the only way you can be successful? I don't believe it is in life.
No, I always say to people, people may, unfortunately, a lot of people measure success on finance.
Mm.
A hell of a lot of rich people who've got a lot of money in the bank, but are they successful? No, because have they got maybe a partner? Have they got have they got the wealth to share with somebody? Well, maybe not. And, it's like a pie chart. To me, success is being fit and healthy, having money in the bank, having good friends around you, being a good person. It's so many components to being successful. It's not just that one piece of the pie chart, which may people deem as finance to be successful. But I think it's a lot more detailed than that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, there's so many people who are not necessarily the wealthiest people, but they've achieved great things. You can look at people like, I don't know, Mother Teresa or Gandhi, and they weren't people with lots of money, but they were successful in their mission in life to some greater or
Yeah.
lesser degree. But I mean, for me, it's, and I said earlier in the intro about, success, and is it, within our genes? Is it something we can train for? I mean, you're a former athlete. How big a part did all of that play in your success and later success in business as well? Because I'm a great believer there's a crossover between sport, business, athletic training, health, fitness, all this kind of thing. But before we get into all of that, for those who don't know too much about your story, explain a little bit what sort of drove you to become an athlete and succeed in that sense, and then transition well into the business world.
Yeah, good question. So as you said in the intro, I did a program on searching for my birth mother, which won a BAFTA. So I'm adopted, and I was adopted at 6 months old. I was born in Matlock in England. I'm Welsh through and through with red blood because I've lived in Wales all my life. But I was brought down to Wales from my mum and dad who've raised me all my life, and it's funny because, I got to 10 years old and I ended up winning sports day in school. I pretty much went twice as fast as every kid in the whole school. And my headmaster said, "Who is this kid?" And I was like, "Well, I'm Jamie Baulch." And he said, "I think you should join the running club." And it was from that day on, I joined the running club, which my mum and my granddad brought me down. But I think I've always had that hunger. I've always had that desire to go that extra mile. And it's only recently I've realized, over the last decade, I've realized that why did I run so fast? And I think I was running really quickly because I wanted my birth mother to see me. I think it was an undertone of how can I be seen? How
Hmm.
can I be geared? Obviously, I had a talent and had a skill to be able to run. And yet, it was a God given talent, which I'm blessed for. But it wasn't just my talent. My mum and dad took me to the track. They gave me the level playing field, then the tools, which were the running spikes, to get me to the track twice a week, to give me the tools to be able to run fast. So, I always call it the Christmas tree effect. If I wanted to be that star on top of the Christmas tree, I needed to have branches below me, which was my mum, my dad, my coach, finances, have all of that to enable me to be the person I was. And I think with that desire and that belly of desire of wanting to be number one in the world at something. Hoping that my birth mother may be able to see me if I ran fast. I think that was the tools which gave me that goal of good people. Linford Christie was my coach. I was training and around all. So Colin Jackson was my coach. Linford Christie was my coach. And I was just so lucky to have amazing people around me. And what do they say? Success breeds success. So if you're around successful people, you become successful. And when I joined that group of Collins, I was a very good athlete. But within a year and a half, I ended up getting an Olympic silver medal. And I purely got that because I was around them. Would I have got it without that team? Possibly not. But, being in that nucleus of people who were elite and the best in the world made me hungry of even more to be like them. And, the rest is history.
Yeah, it's interesting because I did watch your documentary. It pulled at a few heartstrings, I have to say.
Yeah.
And it was interesting as well because we were just sort of going back a little bit, if you don't mind, is the importance of knowing kind of where you come from and was it something that was genetically within you? Because obviously with adoptive parents, you don't know that. So it's kind of, do you have those natural genes? And then on top of it, you have the extra training. You've got the natural ability there. Then on top of that, you have the training. And then, like you say, you're surrounding yourself with these top people, these top minds, these people in their own field, the experts that help you take you that extra mile or extra 100 miles or 400 meters in your case.
Yeah. Well, again, you surround yourself with the best, you become the best. I was really lucky that when I did two documentaries. Basically, the second one was to find my birth father. And that second documentary, which I did, we did a genes test of which my mum and my father had a gene called the RNR gene. And the
Okay.
RNR gene basically was a gene which is the fast gene. RNR is a fast gene. So not only did my father have it, my mother had it too. So I had this perfect gene pool from my birth mother and my birth father, if you want to call them, to get me on my way. Like my mother's white, my father's black, my father's
Mhm.
Jamaican, never got to meet him. And I just presumed that I got the fast genes from my father. You just think, oh, Jamaican, it's got to be from my dad because all Jamaicans are fast, like Usain Bolt. But no, my mother had the fast gene too. So, you have one gene, two genes, align them up, bang, you get a world champions.
Yeah.
It was fireworks. So I was very lucky.
And then beyond that, obviously, you've got that nurturing environment moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. If you got the genes, you got the nurturing environment. Like I say, from my mum and dad who raised me, they gave me everything. My mum and dad are still around. My dad's 84, my mum's 88, and they were just so special. If it wasn't for them, I would not have any medals because
Mm.
if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have been able to go to a running track. I wouldn't have been able to have a tracksuit and the running spikes and the tools I needed. And, when you get handed that opportunity, which I was very lucky for because my parents are amazing, things happen. And I went from being the fastest kid in the school to the fastest kid eventually in Wales to the fastest kid in Britain, then Europe, and
Mm.
then the world, and you just go on this uphill spiral and you don't stop until you make it to the very top. Yeah, very lucky to have all that love and attention and nurturing around me to enable me to become the person I am today.
Yeah. And it's funny because many people who would look at that and think, well, how did you come through that in such a positive way? Because for many people, I guess they could perceive that whole situation as, oh, well, these aren't my birth parents and finding out about your adoptive parents. for some people, that may set them back. So what is it that made you have this? Do you feel, are you naturally a very positive person? You generally look at your situations from a positive perspective. Is that what helps you
Yeah,
overcome
it's good.
certain challenges?
Yeah, good question. Very good question. I've always been that positive person. I've always been a bit of a clown. I've always been a bit of, even when I was 2, 3, 4, I was always that guy dancing around, messing about. And I always, or most of the time, not always, look at the sunny side of things. I always look at the bright side of things. When to become a world champion, you've got to live a lot of dark days.
Mm,
There's a lot more dark days in it than light days, if I could put them in categories. Because to be a world champion, you've got to be physically sick. I mean, physically push your body so hard that you make yourself sick. Then you've got to get up the next day and do it again. I mean, that's got to come from within. You can't majorly teach that. You've got to have this desire and a burning desire, and you've got to do stuff other people aren't willing to do, and that's go through pain. And I
yeah,
think most people who've exceeded in sport or anything which attains that elite separation is to do something people aren't willing to do. And I was willing to do it because I wanted the goal. I wanted the goal of being number one in the world for all different reasons.
yeah. And it comes down as well, you have that passion. I mean, I've not met an athlete who is extremely successful in that sport that aren't doing it because they don't love it. It's not the money, it's not the celebrity, for want of a better word. It's the love and the passion for their sport that makes you get up at the crack of dawn, train for hours on end. And obviously, as a professional athlete, you've got your whole support system, medics and nutritionists and managers and coaches and everyone to help you with that, which obviously most people in everyday life don't have that whole team around them. But, you've got to have that passion. And I think sometimes, do you find that sometimes you can lose that as you go through your career and you start to get a little bit older? Is that something that you found quite easy to always look at, what am I passionate about? What am I doing this for? What's my purpose?
Yeah, that's again, good question. Is most, if not all, sports people, when they start off in sport, you never really look at the money or the fame or the fortune because you're just a kid, right? You play football because you love football. You go out to athletics because you love running. Like Lionel Messi and also Ronaldo and Usain Bolt, for example, they didn't know at 10 years old that they were going to be the people they were going to become. They
Mm,
played football because they enjoyed playing football. Usain Bolt ran because he enjoyed running. I enjoyed running. So you start off in your early career just in doing it for the love of it. And then you start getting good at it. And then you think, oh, I'm getting good at this. So then you love it even more because in the end, you're getting recognition for something you love. And then before you know it, you're at an Olympic stadium and it's 1 billion people watching you on TV and even more people are enjoying what you do. So I think it only changes when the expectation on the individual takes over, the expectation of others
okay.
slant and taint your own perception of what you've been trying to do. And that's when it changes, when the expectations, and that's when the pressure comes. And then it's very important to surround yourself with great people at that point.
Mm. When
At
you talk
that
about
point, it changes.
expectations, so you talk about there about expectations. What were some of the sort of expectations that changed that sort of make you feel like you're under pressure? Because that can happen to a lot of people, whether it's expectations you inflict on yourself or, like you say, other people putting their expectations on you.
Yeah. Well, I remember vividly one day, 1997, a long time ago. I was the fastest 400-meter indoor runner in the world. I was winning every race there was to win. It was easy. It was almost like running a county championships, but I was doing it on a world level. It was crazy. I
Yeah.
was just when it came to the World Championship final, I got really nervous because I'd never, as an individual, been in that situation before. I thought, oh, I can win a world champs here. Cutting a long story short, I ended up coming second in the world champs. A guy called Sunday Barder beat me in that race, and I crossed the line. He beat me. I did the lap of honor, disappointed, and I remember meeting the BBC and going down the tunnel and, with all the reporters. And I remember them all like looking at me going, oh, congratulations, Jamie. How do you feel? And I know they were all feeling disappointed for me because they knew I should have won that day. I
Mm.
met my parents about a half hour after the race and they went, oh, congratulations. And they hugged me, but I could tell they were like, oh, what happened? But nobody said it. I got on a plane home to Wales It was in Paris, and I was with Colin Jackson on the plane home. And I remember just being like this, glum, moody, upset. Got back to my apartment in Wales about 5 hours after that race, and I had my world silver medal, world championship, not county championships, not British, but world medal, elite level
Yeah.
in my hand. And I remember looking at this medal, and I remember going, wow, I came second. Oh, wow, I'm so upset. Suddenly I heard people outside of the room, outside of the apartment arguing. I could hear somebody outside, and suddenly, realization that life moves on. That those people who were arguing, whatever they were arguing about, and the cars driving past, I just thought everyone's living their own life. And at that point, I went, nobody cares. Nobody cares if I win or lose, because all they care about is their own lives. And at that point, I started laughing. And at that point, the pressure which had built up in me released to the point of 2 years later, I ended up winning the world championships by about 10 meters. It was the easiest world championships I'd ever run. It was like school sports day. It was like doing school sports day. It was that easy. And I think that we all, as human beings, we all put ourselves under this amount of pressure at times. And the bottom line of it, it's uncalled for, because none of us are making it out here alive. We're not going to be around forever. In 100 years, people are going to go, if my name ever gets mentioned in 100 years' time, like my great grandson or whatever mentions, your great granddad was Jamie Baulch and he was an Olympic. Oh, was he? It does. And that, you realize, you have that realization that if nobody really cares, what the hell are you putting yourself under pressure for? There is
Yeah, I
no
mean,
pressure.
yeah, I mean, I always hear this, particularly recently, that people say, challenges are going to occur, problems are going to occur, but it's up to you whether you struggle. So it's kind of, you can look at it and then let it go and say, it is what it is. If I can't change it, I have to accept it and just forget about it. But if you, indulge in the sadness, the moods and everything, it just prolongs the whole process, and you find it harder to come out of that. And I find that's really, but particularly as we're getting older, I find that's really important, because we can really look negatively. I guess as human beings, we tend to focus on the negatives more than we do the positives. And I think that's something that maybe we need to change our perception of who we are, where we've been, everything we've achieved, and start to look at the good things a bit more. I hope I'm making sense with that.
Yeah, complete. I totally agree with you. I mean, we put ourselves under so much pressure on a daily basis, just generally, I'm talking about people now.
Yeah.
And, you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? Can you do it tomorrow? Can it wait a week? Does it need to be done now? Certain things do, certain things are time sensitive. Other things are not. It's prioritizing what's important and what's not. But is
Yeah.
anything majorly important anyway? And I go through peaks and troughs of it. I'm not going to sit here and make it seem like I've sussed it, because I haven't, but I certainly gravitate towards the understanding of, okay, forget it. It's fine. Stop. Like, you've got to have a word with yourself at times and come out of that conflicting thing we've got, and just take a back seat. And I think when you just come out of it, even if it's you're under pressure, just stop, grab a glass of water, have 15-minute break, settle yourself, and go back to it. And that's what I find.
Mm.
If I'm under pressure, I just stop at times and I'll just take myself out of it.
Well, I think that is all part of self-care, and I think it's something we need to do a bit more of. We're getting so caught up in other people's expectations, which is probably why we tend to do many of the sort of negative behaviors, because we're sort of thinking what other people will think of us, or all the, I don't know, all the responsibilities we may have, some of which are very important. But we forget to actually, do you know what, I just need to take some time out and some recovery, or, like you say, have a break and just refocus, because there's so much noise going on, and it doesn't change the older you get. No matter how successful you are in life, it's always going to be there. So I think that's a really important tool that anyone can really use and be of value. But for you, I mean, you've obviously, now you've gone into these businesses and these charities. You're doing so much with your life. And was that easy for you? Because I mean, obviously, whether it's a transition from a sport into business, whether it's an age transition, a health transition, whatever it may be for someone, was that something that was a challenge for you, or did you go through all of that quite smoothly?
I love your questions, by the way. I So it was a bit of a challenge. And I'll give you the reasons why. When I retired from sport, in sport, you work hard. If you've got the skill set and you have the nurturing and all that, you become the best.
Yeah.
So you may be a fan of mine or not a fan of mine because you might have really preferred Roger Black over me, over you and Thompson, whatever, right? It's if I cross the line first, I'm the best in the world. If you love me or hate me, right? I'm the best. Nobody can say I'm not. I'm a world champion. I'm sat here, triple world champion. That will never go. I'm that guy. In business, I might have the best idea, which in my head is an Olympic medal idea and a world championship gold idea. And it may be, I think blue's better, but you might think red's better. And
Yeah.
you go, I'm going to go with red. And I'm like going, no, blue's better. And you're like, no, I prefer red. And what I found really, really, really difficult when and at times I still find it difficult, is discretion. Discretion in business is really tough, especially when I'm not saying I'm right. That's not the point of what I think it is. But when you can see possibly a really bad choice being made, and you know if it swung the other way, it would be maybe more economical or better. I found that really tough. Discretion and having to listen to others who have got a totally different opinion. That
Mm.
was difficult for me. And it took me years to understand that, to get over it and relax in it.
Yeah. I mean, is that kind of part of being an athlete as well? You're really in charge of everything 100%, you know? I mean, obviously you've got your coaches and everything, but are there more people to consider, more opinions to consider in a business setting, or is it all ego?
Yeah, well, that's a good shout. Like in business, there's a lot more people who want to have a voice, and
Mm.
the bigger. Luckily for me, I'm my own boss. I own my own company, so it's a little bit easier. And most of the time, I have a final say in lots of things, which is good. But I have worked for people since I've retired, and I found that really difficult. I found it not. And it's not because I couldn't take order, because
Mm.
my coaches, Linford and Colin, were my bosses in a way before. It's the fact that I feel a person may be a director of a company who I'm dealing with. So in his head, he's the big, or she's the big honcho. But in relative terms, they're the head honcho in a local company in a local village. So in technical terms, they're Gwent level or county championship level winners. My mindset is Olympic medal winner. So it's a total different mindset. So again, I did find it quite tough to put up with. And you've just got to learn to put up with it. You can't, in the real world and in the business world, it's not just your idea. You've got to go with the flow.
Yeah, but I also think as well in business, there's a lot of ego in business. We have, you're right, particularly if it's your own company, there's a lot of ego.
Yeah.
I've got ego, everyone's got ego. I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah,
you can actually achieve it without a degree of ego in there.
yeah.
And obviously winning mindset. And this is where I think the crossover is, you have although obviously sport is very different to business, the mindset and the way you approach things can be quite similar. But then again, as well, it comes back to who you surround yourself with. If you have a certain level of way of behaving, expectation in terms of operating, how you approach what you're doing, your business, creative side of all of that, then you need to find those people who are kind of thinking or in the same level as you, whether it's someone you partner with, or maybe whether it's a customer, a client. Is there any degree of that's something that's important?
Yeah, it's a tough, sport and business, and the whole degrees in between, the ego, the lack of ego, the non, it is tough. I went just going on a side note. I went to Bali this year, and I went to Bali for a month, and I studied Neigong. Neigong
Oh, right.
is the internal arts. So it's not a martial art, it's an internal art where you learn about yourself internally. And we pretty much train from 9 till 1:30 most days, or 5-day week. One of the things I think is important, I think, is learning to learn about yourself and learn about letting go, rather than, it's very easy to get brought up in an egotistical world. and think that you're right. But we're coming from such a small position. I mean, I don't want to go too deep into it, but the universe is a massive place. And if
Mm.
we really think we're the center of the universe, I suggest somebody else goes on an Aegon course, you know what I mean? Because, we're just small dots. I mean, we're not here for long. The one thing I love, you got the great Denzel Washington, and Denzel Washington once said, "You'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. You'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse." And I really love that, because whatever you do in this life, whatever you've got, whatever material things you've got, nothing's coming with you.
Yeah.
So let go of that. Let go of it, because it doesn't serve you. And the older I've got, the more I've understood that. I've got two children, I've got two grandchildren. When you turn into a granddad, you suddenly realize, oh, hang on a sec, I'm getting old. So you realize, moving through life, and before you know it, I'm going to slip off the edge, and at the end, it's going to be my kids left, and then my grandkids, and you think, oh, okay. So that humbles you quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think everyone sort of gets that position because when you're young, there's the world is your oyster. You don't think about later life and those sorts of responsibilities. And maybe as we're getting older, you tend to think life is finite. So I think that's kind of something that well, certainly I hear from clients who are older. I look at family members. They start to get to a point, particularly as you get into your 60s and beyond. I think more so is my life's coming to an end. And that feeling of obviously fear of the unknown, but also have I achieved enough? And what is when I'm gone? What are people going to think of me? What are people going to say about me? Is it something good, or are they going to have a negative? I just wonder, is that because obviously you've got family, you've got children and everything. Is that ever anything that sort of you think about moving forward when it comes to your life, your business, and how you want to create a really positive environment to leave behind?
Yeah. No, no, it's really good. No, like, one of the reasons I wanted to find my birth mother and my birth father is because I didn't want on my headstone Jamie Baulch, world champion, Olympian medalist. You know what I mean? I wanted to know a little bit more history about where I'm actually from. I want to know a little bit more detail. So my kids have got more detail, which means my grandkids have got more detail. And it's funny how we get caught up to go, oh, I've got to do this. And we have this empowerment of wanting to be maybe bigger and better than ourselves. And ultimately, I think the most important thing in life is learning who you are. We so get caught up in life of, I need to have the nice house. I need to have the nice car. I need to have the designer clothes. I need to be seen. You said at the very beginning, at the top of the program, you said about, the Mother Teresa's and the people, the humble people who are going to be, remembered far longer than us because they were so humble in their teachings and what they did.
Mm.
And the older I'm getting, the more I'm trying to lean towards that side of it. Great experiences, surrounding yourself with great people and people who love you. I think the only important thing is that really is surround
Mm.
yourself with people who love you and you love them. I mean, I don't really care majorly about people I don't know. Yes, I got a bit of an ego and I want to leave a good impression, but generally, the ones I really care about are the ones who are
Mm.
my family.
So I guess the lesson is, no matter what your age is, but particularly as you're getting older, that you stop, paying too much attention to all the external stuff, but work
Yeah.
more in if it's anything to do. And I think you're right. I think because I've certainly experienced that as I'm getting older, is working more on what's going on in my head. Getting to know who you are as a person, your own identity, and that is really important because for me, it's all about comes down for me about health and wellness and this sort of holistic sort of view of your health and wellness, not just your personal health, those around you. And part of that is how you see yourself. Is it do you getting a stress response with how you see yourself? Or is it coming out as a positive light and you feeling good about yourself, good about life and your environment? So, I mean, you touched on there about the sort of Neigong that you've been doing. How important was sort of for you maintaining that health and wellness? And are there things that, maybe the foundation you had as an athlete have really helped you in terms of building that physical, mental, emotional strength as you've gone through life, as you've transitioned into business and had great success there? And then obviously, that example you're leading to your children, grandchildren.
Yeah. No. So for me, being health and fit. I'm 52 now. I was in the gym with Daley Thompson, of all people, dropping a name in there, in Turkey recently, about 3 months ago. And I lifted the heaviest weight I've ever lifted in my life at 52. And I was like, how have I just lifted that? I was like really impressed I managed to lift it. It was just crazy. But to me, it's about balance. It's about, I don't train like I used to. I certainly wouldn't want to train like I used to. I wouldn't want anyone else to train like I used to because it was insane. But to be physically fit for my own age, to be able to walk, a lot each day, to be able to lift things, if it's getting a jar from the top shelf to getting up from a settee, it's just the practical elements of life I want to be good at. I'm very lucky that Cheryl, my partner, said it to me not long ago. She said, God, you're good at every bloody sport. Like, yeah, if we just play tennis or paddle or swimming or I just pool or, I can go, I can just adapt really quickly. And I've always had that in me, really. It is, I think, if you've got a healthy body, you've certainly got a healthier mind. I think when you've got a healthy body, I think mindfully think differently. If you get up in the morning and you're drinking a lot or you're eating loads of crisps and all rubbish food, then you're going to feel, they say you are what you eat. I don't eat majorly healthy, but I eat in relative terms to most people. I eat fairly well. I stopped drinking
Yeah.
about 6 months ago, so I don't drink any alcohol anymore. And I loved a glass of wine, and I loved a pint of Guinness when I went to the rugby, and I enjoyed now and then going out with my friends, and I'd like a glass of wine at home here and there. But I stopped drinking. My partner Cheryl hasn't drank for about 10, 11, 12 years, however long it is, maybe longer. And I decided to stop myself. And since I've done that, wow, physically, mentally, I feel so much better. I saw somebody yesterday at David Lloyd, and they walked past me and said, "Oh, Jane, God, you've lost some weight." Not that I was ever big. I was quite more muscly than anything.
Yeah.
And I said, and I thought, oh yeah, I know I have recently. And I think it's just because I've stopped eating sweets. I've stopped eating Haribo sweets, and I've stopped drinking Guinness on a weekend, every other weekend. The transformation on just changing those two things is unbelievable.
Well, I think as you get older, your body changes and how it metabolizes these things. And I know certainly as a woman, you're going through your hormonal changes. Things like alcohol and certain food, you just can't metabolize them. And you've got to sort of finish eating by a certain time of the day. And it really affects your sleep and all this kind of stuff. And then, like you say, if you're getting good sleep, if you're eating well, if you're taking care of your health and fitness, it changes your confidence, how you show up in the world, how the choices you make. And that doesn't change as you get older. There's always this sense, and I've heard this time and time again, I'm sure you've heard it. People say, oh, I'm getting older, and they blame it, well, it's because of my age or whatever it is. And that it's not just when you get to 70 or 80, it starts at 40s and 50s, and making excuses that you can't do certain things because I'm getting too old. But actually, these things are really, really key and fundamental. And yes, you've had a great foundation as an athlete, but being able to carry that through, or even if you start a little later in life and think, do you know what, this is something I want to have a good quality of life. Don't want to be rushed to the doctors every 5 minutes. The importance of muscle quality, muscle mass, bone density as you're getting older, and how it affects things like insulin resistance and diabetes and all these kinds of things. Really, really important. So you really go through that transition into later life and still continue to have that success and that purpose. It just, eases your mind, lifts your mindset, makes you more alert, more focused. There's so many benefits. And I think that's something that as we're getting older as adults, we need to really look at a bit more seriously, and recovery and all of that.
No, 100%. Cheryl always says to me, she's my partner, she always says, you never regret doing a training session. You never regret a training session. You never regret going swimming or going for the walk. I always feel a lot better after I've trained, physically and mentally. Mentally more than physically. My brain is very alert and awake, and I don't feel any sort of depression or anything if I've trained. If I don't train for like a week, I get slumpy. I don't feel good. The depression or that level of anxiety and don't feel as good creeps in, and the weeds start building up. And for me, training is part of my life, and you don't need to be an Olympic medalist in your 50s to train. You don't have to go down the gym and lift weights like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Everything is in moderation to the person,
Mm,
the individual. Like if somebody gets 400 meters, 500 meters, that's better than not walking at all. So, I don't want to come here and go, oh, you've got to do this. And you go, no, 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 just do what you can do and do as much as you enjoy. And you
yeah,
don't want to make it a chore either. You want to do it and enjoy it. And I can guarantee you go out and do a walk each day, you'll feel great when you get back in. It's
yeah.
just cause and effect.
Yeah. And there's so much sort of being outdoors and being in that environment that are really mentally and physically really enhancing for your life. I mean, and for you as well, because you've done so well at sort of, as I said earlier, is about that sort of bridging between sport technology and wellness, because obviously you have your wellness company as well. So how is that with, what is it that that's all about? So explain to me a little bit about your wellness company and everything you're doing with uWin, BidAid as well, and how your experience has helped you enhance those services.
Yeah, so BidAid and uWin are sort of my babies really, and they're all technology based, or these two are technology based. Where one's basically a silent auction platform which you can use at charity events in the UK and around the world, or online or hybrid. And I've managed to raise millions over the years for charities, which I'm really proud of, or different charities, wherever they may be. uWin is a RAF platform. So you get experiences on there, having a private Zoom with Daniel Radcliffe, Tom Felton, the Harry Potter cast, or it may be going on Taskmaster, the TV show, and meeting Greg Davis after the show and having a packet of crisps with him. And we've raised thousands on that platform too. So that's what those two do, and I'm very proud of them. And I think the reason I've got into that is I think the underbelly again of me, my DNA is, well, I got a second chance in life. Well, if I can raise money for various charities around the world, millions for charities around the world, well, I'm giving others a second chance in life, wherever it may be. So I think there's some coalition with that and my psyche and my DNA. And then Wellness Worldwide is basically it's called wellnessworldwide.club, but it's not an actual club, but it's called, and basically we take Olympic medalists to resorts around the world, to name a few people: Colin Jackson, Daley Thompson, Denise Lewis, Jessica Ennis, Max Whitlock, Becky Adlington, Paula Radcliffe, all these different people. They go to different resorts around the world and they coach the guests of the resort. And so you can go running with Paula Radcliffe, you can train with me and Daley Thompson, or you can go swimming with Rebecca Adlington, or do dance with Strictly Come Dancing dancers. And
Sounds
the whole
amazing.
group, yeah, it's unbelievable. But I don't know any other business, any other company in the world which does it. And that's more my partner's company, Cheryl. But I'm highly involved in it, being an Olympic medalist myself. But yeah, all or former world record holders, so very good elite, but it's not geared for elite people. It's geared for everyone. So you may never have ran 5 kilometers before. If you've never ran 5 kilometers before, you can go walking with myself and Daley Thompson or whatever, or you can have a swimming session with Rebecca Adlington and they teach you the basics, and it's just
Yeah.
brilliant. It's something I really love. We've got a few resorts coming up next year. And the most important thing as well is it's affordable for everyone. It's not that corporate, oh, you've got to be, you've got to spend 10. Cheryl has made it affordable, and that's the most important thing, because she wants to serve all.
Yeah. And that's the great thing, I think, as well. It's open to people of all fitnesses, all levels. And what a great way to, if you decided do you know what, I'm going to get back on this health kick, I'm going to do it this way. And they go to one of your resorts and they're learning to swim with Rebecca Adlington or walk with yourself. What a way to to get into the
Oh,
new routine.
it's honestly, it's unbelievable. And you don't just do the hour session with that celebrity, and then you don't see them. You'll see them around the resort for the whole day. So by the end of the trip, Rebecca Adlington's your friend. You get what I mean? It's like unbelievable. It's not us and them. It's a very all-inclusive sort of thing. And there's been lots of people who've come who aren't fit, who haven't done sport, who've gone away, and we've got them into it in their way. And it's wonderful to see.
I think that's great, because I mean, I'm a great believer that, being fitness, health and sport is one way to sort of make the world a better place, builds better communities and everything. And I think you're doing that very, very well. And I think, I would love to hopefully be able to come one day, rebuild my
You
health.
must come.
But I love this idea
You
of
must.
giving people a second chance. And I think that's something we need to give ourselves. Don't be hard on ourselves. Let's give ourselves a second chance. Let's take a factory reboot. You take a step back and think, where am I going? And then get ourselves back on track. And I think that that to me is really important. I mean, from your perspective, what if you were to say someone say to you, you know, what would be your top tips for someone who's maybe struggling with a bit of a transition? Like I say, it could be a health, it could be a business, it could be, you know, whatever it may be, that transition they're going through. From your experience of what you've learned and you've seen from people you've worked with, what would be, say, your top 5 things that the people really need to really think about that is going to make that difference between where they are now and getting them off the ground running, if you like?
Yeah, well, it's lots of different things really. Is don't ever take yourself too serious, because nothing in life is really that serious. You know, I mean, in working life now, or just life, you know, just and take time out. There's nothing wrong with taking a break, because, you know, we all get caught up at times and we get lost in ourselves. So I think it's really important to take that break, because in that break, you can freshen up and view the situation you're in from an outsider's point of view, rather than being in it, going, how do I get
Mm,
out of this? So always take a break when you need it. Surround yourself with really good people who can give you some really good ideas. Don't speak to everyone about what your plans are, because then you'll get muddled with too many different opinions. So speak to maybe a couple of people who are close to you about maybe some health problems, fitness, whatever it may be, you know, somebody who cares about you, and speak to a professional, speak to somebody who can actually help. If it's you want to get on a fitness journey, go to your local gym and speak to a trainer, speak to somebody who knows what they're doing. If it's on a personal level, go to a doctor. You know, there's so many people around us we can use, and so many tools we've got which we can extract. But the one thing, like I said, is never and then there's, you know, there's always other options. You know, we're not just stuck in the place we're stuck in. We feel we're stuck in because we haven't looked outside of our own little box. I would have never thought I was going to do auctions 15 years ago. Like, that is like looking at it now, like, how the hell did I get into this? But I'm in it, you know. Equally at the same time, if I wanted to get out of it, I could get myself out of it, you know, because there is more than one thing I can do in life. You know, I'm
yeah.
not. Yes, I've got these companies which raise money for charities, but that's not me. That's not what, that doesn't define me. And I remember when I was an athlete, you're the runner, you're the runner. And my response was, running something I do, not what I am. And that's, when you think about it, running something I do, not what I am, because I'm certainly not a runner now. You know, if I was a runner then, you know, I'm certainly not now. So no, whatever we do in life isn't us. It's just what we're doing, but it doesn't define us. So don't get wrapped up in what you think defines you, because there's so many versions of you which you could be doing other things if you choose to. Yeah. So they're my tips, I suppose.
Yeah, I
Not
mean,
sure how many
I actually really like what you said there about, because I think that's a common mistake we all do. We define ourselves by what we do, not who we are. And we're, you
Mm,
know, as human beings, there's so much to us. There's our likes, our dislikes, you know, what we're good at, what we're not so good at, all these different things, you know, and just because things are changing, if we get too caught up in what we do as a thing, that can actually be
yeah.
quite detrimental to our progress and our future happiness, I feel. And I think that's something that we need to really look at within ourselves. Hey, is this what I am, or is this what I do? And I think that's really it goes back to what you said earlier about letting go, and just knowing that, you know, just because things change, just because you do make a mistake, because that's another thing, you worry about making mistakes and failures. It's usually, if you look back, if you go back from where you have your success, and then you go back through, maybe you've made some mistakes, you go through the whole journey, everything fits together, and everything happens for a reason. And all those things that went wrong, all those negative feelings, all the way through to all the good stuff, they all happen to make you make a certain choice in your life and decision that shaped you into this wonderful human being that we all become, rather than this is what I do and this is how I have to live the rest of my life. I'm waffling a lot there.
No, no, everything you said, it makes a lot of sense. You know, we do get wrapped up in this identity of what we're doing right. You know, if you just look at my life, 20 odd years ago, I was an athlete. I did athletic. Now
Mm.
I'm a fundraiser. Well, am I a sprinter or am I a fundraiser? No, it's just what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that I think that, you know, a lot of people get defined by it, and they get closed in this box of this is who I am, to the detriment of themselves, because they wake up each day not happy what they're doing in an environment they don't like. And in a way, all they're doing is existing, not living.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I understand that, financially, most people have got to earn, a living to pay for their mortgage or their rent and their food and their heat. And, I understand that. You can't just go, I'm going to quit my job and not have anything at all in place. There's no harm in looking over and checking what else is out there. One of the things I said to somebody the other day, I said, "God, I'm really busy, because I am busy at the moment." And I'm really busy. And I remember something was said, and I said, always ask a busy person to do a job. You've heard that expression. Like I get asked quite a lot from people, and I'll try my best to get it done for other people, even though it's nothing to do with what I'm trying to do myself.
Yeah.
Because I know I can get it done. Whereas you get some people who don't have much on and they can't be bothered to help you out at all. And and they're the people who need to, buck up and maybe, try and help themselves.
Yeah. Well, I guess it comes down to the less you do, the less you want to do. And if you're busy, you've got all this energy that is quite not easy necessarily, but you can just adapt and sort of fit things in here and there because you have all this positive energy around you.
No, I agree. Like I say, when I go to the gym or I go for a walk or I go for a swim or a sauna, God, I feel good, and
Yeah.
I've got all this energy to get me through because I do have a lot on my plate a lot of the time and I deal with it because of my fitness levels. I think if I weren't as fit as I am, and I'm not claiming to be really fit, 'cause I'm not, but for a 52-year-old man, I mean, I'm decent, that I think that gets me through. I really do. I think if I lost this side of me, which is that fitness side, I think I'd find life far more
Yeah.
difficult.
And I think as well, for me, it's as well, just because things are a bit tough maybe now for you in some way,
Mm.
don't allow those things to diminish who you are. Take this, if you want to put a more positive spin on it, maybe instead of allowing it to diminish you, take it as a challenge that is actually going to expand you into a better place, a
Yeah.
better person.
Yeah, yeah. My company, I've gone from the ground up and
Mm,
I've learned from the ground up. X amount of years ago, I had no idea about what auctions were. I knew what they were, but I didn't know how to do it. But I would say, and I don't say this in any arrogance, but I most probably know more about this business than most people because I've overturned every stone. I've been the
yeah.
guy who's learned this, messed up, learned, messed up again, did it right, messed up. It hasn't been plain sailing by no means, but God, I've got knowledge now, and I've got a hell of a lot of knowledge, and I didn't realize I had so much knowledge until I compare myself to other people who I know don't. And
Yeah.
I don't say that in a comparison, positive or negative, or I'm better than. It's not that, but I just know a hell of a lot because I've learned a lot in it, and
Yeah.
that's the key. Whatever you do, learn your trade. If you're going to run fast, learn who you're competing against. If you've got people in your business, if you've got competitors in your business, learn what they're doing, what's better than you, and adapt and do it better than them. It's all about learning and not
Yeah.
giving up.
Yeah, and I think that's a great life lesson. So, Jamie, what is next for you? If there's any time to do anything else, is
No, right. Yeah. Well, we've just expanded to go into the UAE to
Ooh,
do
wow.
events over there. So I'm really excited about that. I've done about 5 events already over there. We're really looking next year to really grow the business. There's a lot of changes in what I'm doing, which I'm really excited about because, like I said, I've learned a lot about this industry I'm in, and now it's as I would call it, next year I'm going to the Olympics, if you want to put it that way. I've been in training up until now with my technology, with the ideas, trying to learn what's what, being in events, working with certain people, and now it's time to execute. And it's taken me a long time, but for me, track and field took a long time. I didn't get a medal. I started when I was 10, and I
Yeah.
didn't get a medal till I was 23. As an Olympic medal. So that was 13 years of my life I gave up to get that medal. And so, I'm happy to give up in this life now, if you want to call it, in my fundraising to understand what, it's like I've got the whole jigsaw now. When I first
Yeah.
started, there was loads of pieces missing in the jigsaw. I'm like, what the hell's this? Now I'm like, oh, I've got the jigsaw and I can see myself like putting the jigsaw together and I've got the
Yeah.
box and there's no pieces missing. And it's quite an exciting part. So I'm getting into that territory, which I'm getting quite excited.
Well, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to find out more about it and hear more about it. from you. But look, I really want to thank you for joining me today. Your story is amazing, and everyone is going to learn so much from that, and hopefully have some really great nuggets they can take with them that can maybe help them get through some challenging times, health and fitness, whatever it might be that they want to get through. They can really learn a lot from listening to you. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I've loved it. Thank you.
Right. So I would like to say thank you to Jamie, and thank you to all of my followers and listeners, and look forward to seeing you here next time on Unleash Your Inner Athlete. Thank you.